start with what to you might appear to be a light touch, but something which seems to be turning into a hobby for some Kenyans. A man in Meru caused a stir when he decided to jump and hang on to Raila Odinga's helicopter as Raila Odinga was taking off from Meru after his voter drive. Take a look at these pictures of Meru's James Bond. The man was later safely dropped at a primary school ground and told or urged to visit a hospital for checkup.
Yote ilijengwa na nani? Itakuwa ni siku ile ya vita ya mwisho. Sawa. Tarehe 8
Incredible pictures there. The man was later safely dropped at a primary school called Dimba and asked to go to a hospital for checkup. A similar incident was witnessed in Bungoma with the helicopter, which was then carrying the body of the late businessman Jacob Juma. Let's go. The race for numbers by leaders during the ongoing mass voter listing exercise has taken a different twist, with President Uhuru Kenyatta now asking chiefs and sub-chiefs to do away with the tedious process of acquiring identity cards. The president says a letter from the chief based on his knowledge of an individual and not documents should be enough for a Kenyan to apply for an ID card. But as KTN News reporter Akisa Wandera now tells us, some Kenyans say this would open the ID issuance process to a lot of fraud.
Machief, munajua sana makaratasi birth certificate nini saa ingine hazipo. Lakini wewe kama chief, wewe kama assistant chief, lazima unajua watu wako ni nani. Na barua kutoka chief ya kusema ya kwamba huyu ni mzaliwa wa pahali fulani, yatakikana itoshe mtu aweze kupata kitambulisho chake bila kusumbuliwa.
Could this be the new and certainly easier way for Kenyans to apply for and get their identity cards? These sentiments by President Uhuru Kenyatta in Marsabit to do away with prerequisite documents for acquiring ID cards is meant to have as many Kenyans as possible apply for identity cards and register as voters. For many with identity cards, the procedure has always been standard, a process that is meant to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the applicant is a Kenyan citizen. For the president, however, there's really no need to bother Kenyans with all these documents.
Wengi hawana hizo makaratasi. Na hakuna haja ya kusumbua mtu. Wewe chief, wewe assistant chief, wewe unajua watu wako. Wewe unajua watu ambao mnaishi nao. Wewe unajua mtu kama ni Mkenya au sio Mkenya.
A number of Kenyans, however, feel that this statement by the president is politically instigated to earn him more points as he seeks another term.
I don't think this opinion is right, because it will give us gaps where we'll have even newborns being registered, and immigrants will also get an opportunity of coming in.
We have the cases where even terrorists will come across the borders and vote in our country. And at the time after the elections, and we know who the winner are, these are the cases where we have the cases of Westgate, because these are people who came at the time when the political persons needed their favor.
Usalama wa nchi, hasa tukumbuka ya kwamba kuna maneno ya Al-Shabaab, kuna maneno ya wakeni ambayo labda ni wahalifu kutoka nchi zingine, watapata nafasi ya kumiliki vyeti muhimu katika nchi.
Others see it as reprieve for many who have been unable to get identity cards due to lack of the required documents.
Tuna watoto ambao wako kwa street ambao hata hawajui wazazi wao ni nani. Watakata birth certificate kutumia kitambulisho ya nani. Kwa hivyo tunasema wako na haki ya kuwa na kitambulisho, wako na haki ya kuchukua kura.
Kuna wale ambao wametafuta hivi vitambulisho kwa muda mrefu sana. Wameenda kwa chief hawajapata. Hata hao chokora wanasemekana hao ni wa Kenya, wako na haki na wako na kwao ambao ni Kenya hapa ndani.
According to the National Registration Bureau, for one to apply for an identity card, they need an identity card from both parents and copies of each, original birth certificate and a copy, school leaving certificate if any, and a birth clinical card. A procedure termed by many as hectic but has proven efficient over the years. The issue of uncollected identity cards and other Kenyans lacking the crucial document has dominated political statements among politicians during this period of mass voter registration. Akisa Uwandera, KTN News.
And this is what we seek your views on tonight on our big question. We're asking you, do you support President Uhuru Kenyatta's order that chiefs should not demand for the birth certificates when they are processing your national identity cards? Tell us what you think. Text or tweet us with your yes or no comment plus a brief comment. 22155 is our studio lines. Our Twitter handles at Ben_Kitili, at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. The hashtag is KTN Prime. From Marsabit, President Uhuru Kenyatta went to Tharaka Nithi, where tough-talking president gave the contractor working on the Gatungu Marimanti Road 1 month to complete the works or risk having his contract revoked. He also promised the people of the region that the headquarters of Tharaka Nithi will remain in Kadhwana. Interestingly, Deputy President William Ruto, who was in Nakuru County, also gave another ultimatum to another road contractor to show progress on the Molo Olenguruone Road within the next 3 months.
Na ya Moi na ya Kibaki.
Sisi tunataka kukuhakikishia ya kwamba hiyo kura 1,000
ilikuwa siku ya kuwahimizia umuhimu list mara 2 ile chakula ambayo inaletwa hapa.
Kufikia saa hizi wale ukiwauliza hii pesa Jubilee wako nayo. Jubilee saa hii wanajenga reli imengojewa miaka 50. Tunajenga barabara kilomita 6,000. Tumeweka stima imefika watu 5,600,000. Mambo ya hospitali ndio ile imefika 92 referral hospitals Kenya. Kina mama tunawalipia pesa ya kujifungua. Watoto tunawalipia pesa ya mtihani. Hii pesa yote sisi tunatumia kama Jubilee. Wakati wao walikuwa wanaendesha serikali, Prime Minister, Vice President, hii pesa yote ilikuwa inakuliwa na nani? Hiyo ndio maswali lazima mwaulize.
Sasa tumebakisha tu wiki 2 ambazo watu wanaweza kujiandikisha kama wapigaji kura, na tunajaribu sana kuhimizia kila Mkenya ahakikishe ya kwamba amechukua kura yake ndio aweze kuchagua kiongozi ama viongozi anayetaka. Tunaelewana?
Away from politics now, the day that the doctors had prepared for to be guests of the state was not to be, but rather it was postponed to the 31st of this month, with the hope that the doctors' strike will have been called off by then and this jail term be averted. As Dr. Mercy Korir now reports, the doctors and the government have a race against time.
The much-anticipated walk to prison by officials of the striking doctors aborted, courtesy of a court directive.
I will take time and review the orders I gave on 12th of January. I will further suspend the sentence that I issued, and I'm suspending it for 5 days.
It was a close shave for the 7 representatives of the doctors who are yet to be free of the stress that comes with their office, for they are required to call off the strike within the next 5 days or start their sentence come Tuesday next week. As jubilation greeted Thursday's reprieve, the union officials, who otherwise would be spending their first night in jail, reiterated their firm stance.
Doctors will not go back to work until that CBA is implemented. If no one gets that in this country, get it today.
The doctors have voiced frustrations in their efforts to resolve the impasse.
We have had several steps in which we are engaging on what does it mean to implement the CBA, and on that as a union we have presented very different scenarios, so far several, just so that it can suit government.
Serikali imepiga hatua mingi kujaribu kufika pale wanataka tuende. Ni kuwa sasa hii hatuwezi fika huko kwa sababu ya mapato madogo katika serikali.
One of the compromise positions by the doctors' union is a two-phased approach to implementation of the collective bargaining agreement. The first phase proposed was to be effective from December 2016 with the least paid doctor at a gross pay of 265,820 Kenya shillings. The second phase, proposed from July 2017, will eventually have all doctors at the proposed 2013 figures, the least paid doctor at 325,730 Kenya shillings. This proposal would cost the government 1.6 billion shillings in phase 1 and 2 billion in phase 2.
We had meetings which were geared towards resolving the issues after they rejected the offer which was given in Mombasa.
This proposal by the government has the least paid doctor at a gross of 196,989 Kenya shillings, a proposal that had been published in the dailies. In previous meetings, the doctors and the government had discussed the 2013 CBA article by article, the non-monetary aspects agreed upon in principle, though not penned down conclusively.
When that mother in Marsabit is pregnant and is due to deliver, she will not have to walk 200 kilometers to find a doctor. There will be a doctor in the neighborhood.
They come alone, they come with very dirty hands, they negotiate their own documents. Today you start a process to engage, you get to page 10, then the following day he comes with a different thing. I think we cannot treat this issue like that anymore.
The courts have pronounced themselves, giving the doctors the prescription for which they asked for, a 5-day extension in which to finalize the negotiations between the doctors' union and the government. What then remains is whether the union officials and their compromise positions and that of the government will yield any result that will return the doctors back to hospitals and out of the streets. Dr. Mercy Korir, KTN News, Nairobi.
Also, Kenya's Chief Justice David Maraga today officially launched his blueprint meant to shape the trajectory the judiciary should take over the next 5 years under his leadership. Maraga has promised to ensure all court cases that are more than 5 years old will have been concluded in the next 2 years. KTN's Timothy Otieno reports on the new Chief Justice's grand plans for the country's judicial system.
Consultations with judges.
Sustaining judiciary transformation is the punchline for Chief Justice David Maraga's management at Kenya's judiciary. This became evident when he launched a 5-year service delivery agenda that he hopes will define his legacy. The launch coming as he marks his first 100 days in office.
My tenure will be defined by service delivery based on the performance of court stations throughout the country. Each court station shall develop and display prominently in its premises its own service charter aligned to the service delivery objectives elaborated in the sustaining judiciary transformation agenda.
The service delivery charter will include comprehensive set of performance indices, including public complaints reduction strategies, duration for conducting civil and criminal matters, as well as the time frames for writing rulings and retrieval of files. A benchmark that will be used by the Chief Justice to announce the best and worst court stations every year.
The strategic blueprint is the product of a highly collaborative and consultative process, in regard to which I was closely involved.
If you hear me saying it is now my pleasure, I actually mean it is my pleasure.
But perhaps Maraga's most ambitious plan yet will involve the perennial headache that has plagued even his predecessors, that of a constant stream of cases being filed at the judiciary, causing decades of backlog. As at December 2016, there were 505,315 pending cases in Kenya's courts. Out of that number, more than half of the cases are more than 5 years old.
I promise to utilize service weeks and the day-to-day hearing arrangements to clear all cases that are more than 5 years old by December 2018.
The Chief Justice promised that by the end of his tenure in 2021, no case older than 3 years would still be pending in court. By March this year, all court stations in the country should have access to Wi-Fi as part of an ambitious plan to digitize all court records, and that the Office of the Ombudsman will now be headed by the Deputy Chief Justice to strengthen its mandate.
When I reflect on my desire for the judiciary, my goals and targets, and regardless of the strategic big bets, in my vision statement, I see the purpose of my leadership and the vision for the judiciary as encompassing the desire of the Kenyans for continuity, change, and innovation.
The government of the Republic of Kenya is committed, totally committed, to a truly independent and impartial judiciary.
The launch of the blueprint.
Maraga has formed the Implementation Monitoring Committee, headed by his deputy, to ensure his agenda is met. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
So a potential turning point in the process. Welcome back. Now, for the last 10 days or so, politicians have been engaged in a never-seen-before voter registration mobilization campaign, arguably overshadowing strategies by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. Tonight on Spotlight 2017, our Muremi Mwangi analyzes the figures of newly registered voters and interrogates the possible impact of the same on the August general election.
With the race to State House already at fever pitch, Kenya's key political contenders have for the past 10 days cast their nets far and wide in spirited campaigns to show up their numbers in the ongoing mass voter registration. By Tuesday this week, the exercise had netted some 825,000 new voters.
Kama kuna vita ambayo itakuweko, itakuwa vita ya kura. Watu wachukue kura, watu wajiandikishe, watu wapige kura, uamuzi wa Wakenya utawale.
Mimi nataka ikifika tarehe 15 mwezi ujao, niambie Uhuru ya kwamba mimi niko na tyranny of numbers. Mko tayari?
According to the latest figures released by the IEBC Tuesday, the perceived Jubilee strongholds of the Rift Valley and Central Kenya were leading in the registration of new voters. Rift Valley with 169,000 and Central with 140,000. CORD leader Raila Odinga's Nyanza stronghold had netted some 96,000, while the Western Kenya home turf of National Super Alliance NASA Supremos Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula had registered some 75,000 new voters by Tuesday. Analysts argue these trends could be a key determinant in the selection of NASA's flag bearer to face off with President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Jubilee has boots on the ground looking for votes. NASA is in the air. They will not succeed. Yeah.
Kuna watu ambao wanatu let down. Wanasema, kakuheku kindu kidididi, tupatie kitu kidogo. Wewe, hii kura, kwani unafikiri ni ya nini?
You know, when we say you go and register so that you fulfill your civic duty, how much of that is understood by the ordinary person who has been voting from 1963 up to now and has hardly seen much coming out? So the long-term plan is for us to educate our people.
You hear that within 5 polling stations, there's one biometric voter registration kit, and then it breaks down. And why it only coincidentally breaks down in Makueni and in Mombasa are things that are premeditated. Technology cannot always be failing only in the opposition strongholds.
A recent admission by the electoral body that up to 128,000 identity card numbers are shared in multiple registration of voters has put the ruling alliance and the opposition coalition on a collision course, while some observers have cautioned that this flow could complicate matters for the IEBC, which is yet to kickstart audit of the voters' register.
It doesn't work like that.
Former commissioner at the defunct Election Commission of Kenya, Jack Tumwa, argues that the admission of the error initially pinpointed by CORD leader Raila Odinga was a bold step by the IEBC towards redeeming its transparency.
We have set up a team of registration officers and ICT operators in our commission who are conducting the further cleanup.
If you can register twice, and the system can't flag you out, there's something wrong. It's like going to withdraw 20,000, the only money you have from the ATM, and then you look for another ATM and still withdraw another 20,000.
We want to be told that the police are following up these 21,000 people who double registered. The others, it could be clerical mistakes coming out of the register of persons or even the electoral commissioner clerks.
The political landscape will no doubt be a charged one in the next 2 weeks as both political camps wind up their hunt for the votes.
We are asking Raila Odinga, do you want election or you don't want election? If you are not prepared, we understand your scenario.
Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula, and our party leader are talking about genuine claims about a botched system. And you are updating us about statistics. We don't want to know how many people have turned out, but we want to know what you are, as much as that is important, we want to know what measures are you taking to redress the anomalies.
With the stakes high in the race for the country's top seat, the main political protagonists will no doubt be changing tacks in the coming weeks as the grassroots voter mobilization campaigns intensify. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Kenya's Foreign Affairs and International Trade Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohamed, could be a heartbeat away from becoming the continent's second most powerful woman after Liberia President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. This is if Amina Mohamed wins the position of AU Commission chairperson on Monday. But what does the position mean for Kenya? Why the huge investment in the campaigns? And just who is Amina Mohamed, whose profile could soar even higher should she clinch the seat? Our senior political reporter Duncan Haemba explains.
56-year-old Amina Chawahir Mohamed is a woman on a roll. Her political star shining brightest so far as Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary, whose crowning moment could come Monday 30th in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, should everything work according to plan. But what is her agenda for the continent?
There's an agenda already, Agenda 2063. So the presidents have already pronounced themselves on what they would like to see done.
A lawyer by profession, an accomplished diplomat, and a distinguished negotiator, the tough-talking Amina is eyeing the position of AU Commission's chairperson to succeed Nkosazana Zuma, whose term comes to an end on January 31st. Mohamed's rise on the international platform dates back to the year 2011, where she served as United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of UNEP. Between 2008 and 2011, she was appointed Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, National Cohesion and Constitutional Affairs. Between 2010 and 2011, Mohamed also served as President of the United Nations Conference on Transitional Crime Vienna, and she seems already set for the task ahead.
First step has to be to ensure that anything that we do has a direct impact on the livelihoods of African people, African populations, so that they can actually feel the impacts of the African Union on their daily lives.
CS Amina is credited for pushing AU's tough stand against the International Criminal Court that no sitting African head of state should face trial at The Hague. The cases against President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto were eventually dropped by the Hague-based court, even as many African countries threatened to pull out of the Rome Statute. However, the career diplomat has come under fire for being too pro-establishment. Case in point when she was put on the spot over extrajudicial killings in Kenya by Al Jazeera television network.
Police crackdown on suspected terrorists.
Well, actually,
hold on. Let me finish the point.
Interview them, because honestly, they haven't talked to me.
They said,
I haven't
if they don't speak to the foreign minister, their report doesn't count.
I haven't seen the report. I haven't had any of my cabinet colleagues tell me that they have spoken to anybody in cabinet.
Arbitrary arrests, extortion, theft, sexual harassment.
Well, sorry,
it's all false.
Sorry, I don't care whether it's false or true. They have not talked to anybody.
The foreign minister.
No. They haven't talked to anybody. They haven't. Those numbers have not been verified. That information has not been verified, right?
Should she assume the AU Commission's chairperson's position, Amina would have to contend with accusations of AU's perceived silence against claims of excesses by leaders in countries such as South Sudan, Burundi, and Ethiopia, and more recently AU foreign ministers, including Amina, were accused of watching silently as massacres were conducted in Uganda's Kasese region. Closer home is the accusation that Amina has failed to use her position to negotiate the release of 4 Kenyans jailed in South Sudan. That notwithstanding, Amina is confident that she will clinch the seat.
You feel pressured that... I think nobody likes to lose. Yes. When you embark on something, all of us want to give it the best shot.
It is an election that Kenyan government has invested heavily in, from financial resources to time and high-level lobbying. Could it be a political move for Kenya seeking to influence political decisions across the continent?
We will acquire a position of leverage, and the chairperson's position at the AU Commission is a critical role on the continent.
Madam Caesar, you pressure. Thank you. Thank you.
The CS will battle it out with Botswana's Pelonomi Moitoi, Musa Mahama from Chad Republic, Equatorial Guinea's Agapito Mokui, and Abdullahi Bathili of Senegal. The election will be held on Monday, 30th January. Clinching the position will elevate Amina Mohamed's profile further that could see her profile.
Welcome to KTN Business. Kenya has cancelled the auction of a reopened 15-year treasury bond worth up to 30 billion Kenya shillings. While making this announcement late on Wednesday, the central bank did not give a reason for the cancellation. Traders said this was the first cancellation of a bond auctioned by the bank in recent years. It cancelled the sale of a 364-day treasury bill at the start of this month. Some market players say the cancellation may have been caused by either low bidding or high rate demands by buyers. Also, the Kenya Veterinary Vaccines Production Institute, KVVAPI, has made strides in developing a first-of-its-kind vaccine to tackle the dreaded foot and mouth disease. Speaking during a sensitization workshop on the purified oil-based foot and mouth disease vaccine, Livestock Permanent Secretary, Principal Secretary Dr. Andrew Tuimur said that the advancement of this vaccine will go a long way in reducing part of the annual losses caused by livestock diseases, currently estimated at about 25 billion Kenya shillings. The breakthrough, after a 12-year journey, will now see a regional initiative to curb the disease across the region take root so as to open up regional and international markets for export of livestock or beef.
It confers long immunity. You only vaccinate once or twice, depending on the age of the animal you are dealing with. And this is less stressful.
The purified oil-based vaccine that will support the government effort to progressively control foot and mouth disease for enhanced livestock production, and of course, it will allow us to access both regional and international markets.
My appeal to the counties is to put more money to disease control. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be a tragedy if those old diseases that used to be there come back. So we really need to intensify, disease control in terms of vaccinations and so forth.
Kenya must up her game by investing more funds in technical and vocational training institutions if the country is to address the huge skilled labor shortfall. KTN's Abiagina attended the TVET conference and has more.
Kenya was once known as the regional powerhouse for churning out some of the best technicians in various fields of study. This is no longer the case today. Over the past decade, a heavy focus on growing university education, coupled with the skewed demand for white-collar jobs, has whittled down the formerly prestigious position of technical and vocational training institutions.
For a very long time, we have not had people showing interest in terms of joining TVET because of historical issues, which is dated back to pre-colonial and after-colonial, where everyone aspired to go to university and become a manager.
And now, both private and public sector education players are advocating for more funding to better equip vocational training centers that are critical to the economy.
When you look at entirely what we need for the TVET system, it's in excess of about 15-20 billion.
Top on the agenda, according to Dr. Desai, who leads the permanent working group on TVET, is to build linkages with industry.
We do need a very vibrant vocational sector and TVET structure, not only within urban areas but in rural areas too.
Vocational training centers are ideally meant to produce competent and skilled persons that can venture into business or be absorbed by either the government or the private sector.
As parents and as society, we feel that if you go to vocational institutions, you're a failure. Yeah. This is not the case.
With over 41 technical and vocational training institutions in the country, delegates have called on parents to change their perception of these institutions as they are centers for further development of students to join the labor force. Abiagina, KTN Business.
Kenya Revenue Authority is optimistic that the implementation of technologically advanced systems will help a great deal in achieving customer-focused administration. Speaking earlier today at the tax body marked International Customs Day, KRA Commissioner General John Jiraini said the digitization of the customs operations, like the integrated customs management system set to be rolled out this year, will improve public service delivery and enhance revenue collection. The data analysis from users of the iTax system is also expected to play a key role in analyzing taxpayer patterns to enhance data collection and facilitate better turnaround time. in trade facilitation across the country and even beyond borders.
We are in the initial stages of collecting now information from third-party sources, for example, information about investment transactions, investment in property, investment in shares, maybe even banking as we go forward. And all this constitutes a huge amount of information. So the bigger challenge is how do we use this data to help us better manage our business, but also more effectively serve the public.
Exploring now other avenues where we can also tap into the iTax platform so that we can also get transactional data, and this will help us go a long way in ensuring that we have high quality statistics which is provided or produced in a timely.
Welcome back. Let's now take a look at what's happening in the world of sports, starting with football. And the fate of three clubs, Thika United, Muhoroni Youth and Sofapaka, that had been relegated from the top tier, the Kenyan Premier League, will be known tomorrow. The trio are relegated from the 2017 Kenyan Premier League after failing to meet CAF club licensing requirements. However, there was a window to appeal, and the appeals are expected to be heard and determined on Friday. Following the relegation of the three clubs, National Super League sides Nakumata FC and Zoo Kericho were promoted, making the top flight this season to have 15 teams.
Well, we have a lot of Moroni shots in their own half. They are not attempting to make any attack. And that gives Sotomai a big edge.
Well, the flag has stayed down. The goalkeeper has been waylaid. And Moroni slide this one.
Lady Luck smiled on the newly crowned Harambee Starlets 2016 Most Promising Player Mona Halima Adam after Mombasa-based fashion house Rebeta Fashions offered to provide clothing and accessories to her for the next 1 year.
Mona Halima, who was adjudged the most promising girl player during last week's Soya Awards, will be popping at the fashion shop situated near the Kenyatta National Library, Mombasa, for her clothes and accessories for her choice after every 3 months till January next year.
A small token ambayo tuliona ni tumundress asikie kama kuwa a star.
Rebeta Fashions director Rebeta Kameta said she had decided to support Mona Halima after she realized she needed support to release her long-cherished dream.
Tukaona kama jamii tumshike mkono, tumuencourage hata wengine wale ambao wako mtaani waone inawezekana. Yes.
She has worked this hard. She has reached this far. We need to show the rest of the girls that she stands above everyone else in everything.
She said her children had excelled in swimming and triathlon and would like to see Mona Halima achieve her dream of playing professional football.
Na nitaendelea kufanya bidii zaidi ya vile niko, nitafanya bidii kabisa na nitafika penye nataka.
The former St. John's Carolini student is eyeing a professional stint in Italy even as she continues to ply her trade with Premier League women's side Mombasa Olympics.
Nataka kufika kucheza boli si ya Kenya peke yake, ya majuu pia nataka kucheza boli ya majuu.
She will also receive a television set and a decoder for her Soya achievements. Abula Ahmed, KTN Sports.